Testing.
Oh, yeah, we're good. Oh, that's, we better stop. We better stop whispering about all the people here.
Let's not say anything wrong. You're listening.
What do you think of Gloria? Is
Maria is one of the best architects in this country.
You know, what you say before.
That is married to the best librarian.
Well, one second. We are replacing Morris Lapidus with Gloria. That's how.
So far we've come.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am still Rabbi Wohlberg and enjoying it as much as I ever did. It was really nice that it was decided to dedicate these 4 lectures to 4 focuses that have been part of my rabbinate here since I came in February of 1978. And it was really pretty easy to pick out the subjects that have been sort of central to my rabbinate. Most were natural selections. We had one night dedicated to Israel. Long before me, Beth Tfiloh took Israel very seriously. Rabbi Rosenblatt was the first to take members on trips to Israel. We were the first synagogue, I think in 1951 or something, that had the first Israel Bund high holiday appeal. And what Israel means to me is Sherry and I go twice a year, and as soon as we get off the plane, there's a feeling of being home. The second subject we covered was politics with Senator Carl. The truth is that I look back on my sermons, I had a comment to make on every president since I've been here in 1978. 1 or 2 of the comments were positive. But mostly, I look back on it for some reason. There were a lot of things they said and did that bothered me and that I felt was not in the best interest of America and certainly not in the interest of the Jewish people. But to me, political issues are really life issues, abortion, immigration, and a rabbi should share his perspective of Judaism on those subjects. The third focus was on social action. The truth of the matter is, that is not a subject that was my focus until rather recently. It was not my focus because I've always operated on the basis there are 15 million Jews in a world of 8 billion people. Somebody's got to focus on those 15 million. And I tried to make my rabbinate a focus on just that. I changed when I met the Terrace King. Now don't get me wrong, I was a liberal on social issues all along. I went with Jesse Jackson to Chicago in the 1970s. He doesn't tell that to people, and neither do I. But meeting Terrace King really had a profound effect on my life. And I felt it was an opportunity for all of us to return to our roots. I was bothered the weekend of Freddie Gray when I met with our Bar Bat Mitzvah kids. None of them knew where Sandtown was. Despite the fact that they had parents and grandparents who grew up there, they all knew where the Towson Mall was. Sandtown is closer. We should be connected in some way, and now we are. The last subject is tonight is Beth Tfiloh. Beth Tfiloh has been the center of my existence since 1978. Aside from the Institute of Christian Jewish Studies, I've really never taken an active role in any organization. Not because I don't consider them important, but Beth Tfiloh is so big, so all-encompassing, that it became the center of my existence. Frank Sinatra used to sing, if you're gonna make it anywhere, you'll make it in old New York. I decided to make it in Baltimore at Beth Tfiloh. Looking back, Beth Tfiloh and our community and our world are very different from 1978 when I came to Baltimore. In 1978, everybody was so excited. Harbor Place was opening, and that was going to mean a new beginning for our community, to which we say, Achen Beni. Support for Israel, it felt, was rather universal. After the Yom Kippur War, people felt a real sense of how important it was to support Israel. There was no such thing as J Street. After the 60s with Black Pride, there was a strong movement of Jewish pride. Intermarriage in 1978 was 15%. Now it's 71%. College campuses were filled then with Jewish studies programs. And now Jewish college students are a little nervous. Beth Tfiloh, when I came, was debating whether to be Orthodox or non-Orthodox. I was the first rabbi here at Beth Tfiloh to be a graduate of Orthodox Yeshiva University. And that was taking place at a time when the future of Judaism seemed to be in the hands of conservative and reform. After World War II, it was made possible for people to purchase homes. People bought in the suburbs, and conservative and reform Judaism became the overwhelming majority of Jewish commitment and connection. The school, the Beth Tfiloh School, had 320 students and ended at the 8th grade. And then a year after I arrived, Dr. Schorr came on the scene, and nothing's ever been the same. Together with support of lay leaders, we were able to build the first co-educational Jewish high school, still the only one in Baltimore, which now has over 900 students. We established an outstanding adult education program, which made Beth Tfiloh the center of the community. Everybody from Nikki Haley to Jonathan Sachs, from Charles Krauthammer to the chief rabbi of Israel came through our doors. Major change since 1978. In 1978, Chai Posner did not exist. We were looking for me and Dr. Schorr went to New York, and just we saw a twinkle in a woman's eyes. And now he's the future of Beth Tfiloh. And it couldn't be in better hands. I know of no rabbinic transition that has taken place in our country that has been as loving as this one. I've had so many wonderful people to work with, but from the very start, Tzvi was there and did whatever had to be done to make this institution what it was today. And in the last 10 years, I have to be honest, I couldn't have done it without Rabbi Posner. As I become your rabbi in residence, still actively involved in teaching and speaking and taking food home from kiddushes and evening programs, I feel good knowing that all we have accomplished remains in the hands of these two, who will now share some of their ideas and visions for the future with me.
We've been doing this together for a long time. It may surprise some of you, unless you have been to the Siddur ceremony,
that Rabbi Wohlberg and my husband were in first grade together. I married a much older man. And this is true, they grew up in Borough Park together. In fact, down the block from Sherry's family, as a matter of fact. So we go back really many, many years, and we've been doing some holy work in this past, several decades. And what I'd like to talk to you about, because it's all about vision, is our school. Rabbi Wohlberg mentioned that there are 15 million Jews. Very few Jewish children. And I'm going to say to you that what has animated me all these years is that I love children, all of God's children, but I love Jewish children most. And when you hear that I love Jewish children, you need to know that there are a couple of other things that I love. I love teaching Torah. I love teaching Jewish existence and commitment to Judaism. And I love Israel. I was born in Israel and love Israel. So when Rabbi describes the things that are dear to his heart, those are the things that are dear to my heart. And how do you put all of those together in one place? You build a Jewish day school. And one of the things that Rabbi and I agree on, and we agree on a lot of things, although secretly we really disagree on several. In fact, the people on this stage come from very different places religiously and culturally. And there's one thing we absolutely agree on, and that is the primacy and the importance of a Jewish day school. It's I believe, the only chance we have for survival. When you hear of 71% intermarriage rate outside of the Orthodox, I have to step back and say, we are doing something extraordinary with our lives if there are almost 1,000 kids in a Jewish day school. And it is our only chance. Because I'm going to say something to you, and please don't be insulted if it's not politically correct. I am not prepared to accept the premise that the only Jewishly educated children should be Orthodox. I'm not prepared to accept that premise. Of course, the Orthodox, I don't know how to tell you this, but I sort of am. I come from the Orthodox world. I am an Orthodox woman. We educate almost 40% of our children come from Orthodox homes, but everybody else comes from every place else. And you need to know that the day schools here in town, which are, by the way, thriving, they are busting out of their seams, don't have admissions offices, any of them. We struggle for every child. You know why they don't have admissions offices? They have something much better. Babies, a lot of babies, and they are filled. Am I going to accept the fact that they are thriving and we should not, and our children should be left behind in understanding their connection to Judaism, to Torah, to Israel, to who we are? I can't accept that premise. And so Beth Tfiloh School, as an entity, is a very holy mission. It says, your children, your grandchildren, God's grandchildren are here to learn what it is to live a fruitful, meaningful, continuous Jewish life. And the only way we're going to do it is by having a Jewish day school that's thriving. I'm going to tell you a little bit later some things that I think we need to do to make that continue and happen and really truly be successful. But I'll leave that for now while Rabbi Posner shares his vision of what goes hand in hand, and this is a hand-in-hand symbiotic relationship, what goes hand in hand with the school. But in the meantime, think to yourself that we are the only ones that I can think of that have a Klal Yisrael school that has total fidelity to Torah, Halakha, to Jewish authentic living in an environment that is accepting of every Jew, wherever they're from and wherever they're going. We accept them, we love them, we celebrate them, and hopefully we make sure that they marry Jewish so that their children and their grandchildren will be Jewish. And then I can really fulfill the statement. These four walls are walls with the future, the Jewish future inside.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm glad Rabbi Wohlberg came back to New York about 32 years later in 2010. And we had an opportunity to meet at, I think it was called Mike's Bistro or Mike's Place. I got all dressed up in a suit and tie, I want to make a good impression. I walked in and Rabbi Wohlberg was wearing, there was this phase where he was doing the jeans and the jean shirt together. I think I asked where the rabbi was. No, I knew who he was. And he said something like, you know, we met for, I don't know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes or so. Then Sherry came in and later at some point he told me she liked you. So I think this will work. And I guess I thought that at that time that maybe you'd have to check with the board or the lay leadership or something like that. But now I understand. I want to say 4 things, and I think that hopefully they'll all connect, and then we're going to schmooze. We have a really good time together, but when I listen to Rabbi Wohlberg speak and share, and Dr. Schorr speak and share, I know the truth of the matter is we also work very, very hard. We really work very, very hard. We have a good time. Thank God, I'm grateful. I think I have to give Rabbi Wohlberg the credit for all the laughter that we have and the joy, like that just, you know, you can feel it. We have a good time, but we work very hard because of what Dr. Schorr said. Because we know that we have holy and important work to do. So 4 things, one about Dr. Schorr, one about Rabbi Wohlberg, one about the future of American Jewry, and one about Beth Tfiloh. And then we'll schmooze. Dr. Schorr, so when we talk about addressing the future of American Jewish community, I was thinking about this. I'm not sure that there is a school in America that I would prefer to partner with than our school here. You know, like if I went to the drawing board and I could say, just attach a school to this place, what school would I want it to be? We are truly raising the future Jewish leaders. These are leaders who know how to think, they know how to speak and speak up, they know what it means to proudly be Jews in America in the 21st century. And it is not a simple thing to raise students like that. It starts at the top, and we're very, very fortunate that we have Dr. Schorr on our side. We'll have plenty of opportunities over the course of the year to say thank you to Rabbi Wohlberg. But I want to say specifically today on the backdrop of this conversation about the future of Beth Tfiloh and the future of the American Jewish community. I didn't know what Rabbi Wohlberg was going to say. It's in my notes right here. I said, one could say that this rabbinic transition that's happening right here is one of the most successful rabbinic transitions in history. I love the word love. He said it better than I. I think that it's unheard of to have a rabbinic transition like this. And it surely isn't simple. The truth is that if Rabbi Wohlberg wanted to hang on, he absolutely could have. He could have. And
I thought you liked me.
all know very well, those who are in person and those who are watching, that no one would have forced Rabbi Wohlberg out. It wouldn't have happened. The last person that would have done it would have been Dr. Schorr. It wouldn't have happened. But he had the foresight to recognize that there's a changing landscape and there's a changing generation. And the willingness to step aside and to let go and entrust all that he's built to me, to Dr. Schorr. It's daunting. How successful will this really be? I suppose a lot of that will have to do with me going forward. But I want to say at this moment, on behalf of myself and on behalf of Beth Tfiloh, to Rabbi Wohlberg, is thank you for having the courage to let go. That is not easy. And thank you for having the wisdom to allow us to move forward into these changing times. The truth of the matter is that Beth Tfiloh as a whole owes you a great debt of gratitude simply for that move. It's not simple, and it's noticed and it's appreciated. The American Jewish community, what are these changing times? So we've heard the statistics, and I'm not going to go into all the negatives about anti-Semitism and anti-Israel assimilation and so on and so forth. Here's what I want to tell you. I don't believe in doomsday Judaism. If I took my trusty time machine out and I stopped a Jew living in virtually any other time, in any other place in our history, and I showed them America today and asked them if they wanted to switch places for about 95% of our history, they wouldn't hesitate for a moment. There is so much good here and so much potential here. And I think that we have to stop playing scared. I think that we have to be proud and play offense, not defense. This is our time. There is absolutely no reason that the future of the American Jewish community can't be bright and proud. And I don't believe for a moment that Jews don't need religion. People today are starved for connection and for meaning. They're looking to belong. They're looking for inspiration. They're looking for authenticity. And here is the place. This is where they need to be coming to receive all of that. And we need to be doing everything that we can here to make it that place that they want to come. And so this brings me to point number 4, which is the future of Beth Tfiloh. That's exactly what we're doing here. Post-COVID, we recognize people will need an excuse to come back. And we hope to provide many excuses for people to come back. We're working hard to reimagine the next 100 years of Beth Tfiloh. If people want connection and meaning and inspiration, then we need to make sure that this is a place that fills that void for them. Our main sanctuary is big and beautiful, but it needs to also be warm and intimate. Our services have to be uplifting and engaging and inspiring. Our programs need to be innovative and exciting and substantive and meaningful and authentic. And we need to make sure that cost is not an obstacle to people belonging. We're working hard on all of these fronts through the Centennial Campaign, and with incredibly generous support from so many of our donors, they're helping set us up for success, but the hard work lies ahead. I believe that Beth Tfiloh is the answer to the question of the future of American Jewry. There's a lot of exciting news coming down the road, so as Rabbi Wohlberg likes to say, stick around.
Okay, I'm going to open up our discussion. First by talking specifically here at Beth Tfiloh and then the broader community. The challenge for Beth Tfiloh is the challenge that has always been there for us. And that is how to be model and how to be orthodox. The fact of the matter is this synagogue is radically different than when I came. You didn't have a mechitza. I mean, that's the most obvious thing. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, the officers used to come in tuxedos. Now they wear a kippur. We have more shoulder
But they have
shots.
tails on the kitchen.
What's that?
They have tails on the back of the kitchen.
We have more Shomer Shabbos members now than we've ever had before. We made a decision. We wanted to be Orthodox. You no longer could get away with separate seating without a mechitza. because the world was changing and the non-Orthodox were moving further to the left. The Orthodox were moving further to the right. So we came up with this formula. We're going to reach out to the right by making us more Orthodox. We're going to reach out to the left by making us more modern. A bat mitzvah used to be at the end of the service when we slammed the doors shut, as if to say, this doesn't really count. Now women take an active participation in our service as far as we can take it. How do we continue doing that in the future when the modern have become woke and the Orthodox have become ultra? How do we reach out to the broadest element as we have been able to? On that note, I become Rabbi in residence.
I have some thoughts on that, but I want to go back for a moment and ask you about the past. There's two stories that I hear about the mechitza. Like one story is we put a mechitza in, no one left, no one blinked, and thank God here we are today. The other story also says thank God we are here today, but it tells that it wasn't so simple. So can you take us back to that?
The story of the mechitza is a very simple one. And on my 25th anniversary here, we had a gala celebration with Yitzchak Perlman and tributes to me. And it was a love fest. It was incredible. I was walking in Ocean City with my two brothers and I said, I can get anything from these people. So I asked myself what I really wanted. So I decided to ask for a big raise to cover my spiritual needs. And then I realized we had to put in the mechitza, not because it was important to me personally, but we had a high school with kids graduating who wouldn't come and daven. And I saw where the future was. It was to be or not to be. So, the day before Yom Kippur, I asked the chairman of the board to call a meeting of the board of directors. The night after Yom Kippur, Kol Nidre night, I gave a sermon about being more modern, more Orthodox. We had a vote, and it was either unanimous or Liebe Diamond voted against it.
Or abstained.
Now,
She abstained, right?
I think she abstained. Okay, but she was the beneficiary, because then when we made changes and were more accepting of women, Liebe Diamond was the first one who came to our synagogue, first woman who put on tefillin.
Tell them what you told them.
And everybody, what is the rabbi gonna say when he sees Liebe in tefillin? And they all waited, and I came and said, no, Liebe, I like you in leather. It's a novel. Rabbi Heinemann taught me that line.
Wait 1 second. When did this encounter take place?
Years later, while she was alive.
He
While she was alive.
wants to know
Where-
what shul, because it was during the week.
But the
That's what I was wondering.
oh yeah, oh those were, I think I was saying Kaddish to my father. There had to be a reason why I wasn't sure. No, there was no uproar, there was no to-do, and in fact, people were surprised when they saw what the mechitza actually was. It wasn't this towering wall that many had feared, but to some people, for whatever reason, it was making the shul too religious, and they didn't feel that was where they belonged. And what really changed our population was with more and more intermarriage in the family, the parents were coming here, but the children, well, she doesn't know the service and she wants to sit together with me. We're going to go to Beth Tfiloh, physical and so on and so forth. And then a year or two later, the parents went along with it. So starting with that, becoming too religious, there were members, family members, prominent family members who left. But there were others who never would have joined, who came.
I'm going to say to you that in terms of the school, it's unusual because I have colleagues in other cities that there was really very little of, I'm afraid that my kid is going to be too religious. Because of the fact that our teachers, and they are really quite remarkable, try to teach in a way that is accepting and loving, and they do understand the fact that we are very much a Klal Yisrael school. There's not any judgmental approach. So what do our teachers do? They teach the beauty and the joy of Shabbos, not the don'ts, but the do's. And as a result, I have rarely had a situation where I had a parent who said, I'm really nervous about this. My kid is going to be too religious. In fact, my preschool parents love it when their kids come home singing Shema. Except with the following happening. I give out tzitzit to second grade children, and I do it myself so that I know exactly what is said to the children, so I don't have to make any excuses afterwards if the teacher said something and a parent is complaining. I give out the tzitzit. And I had a parent who called me and said to me, and they have to bring a note, by the way, in order to wear tzitzit. So they bring a note to my office. It goes something like this. Why do you want to wear tzitzit? And the child goes, and they say, the ceiling? Okay, so maybe we have to work a little bit on our teaching of what tzitzit are all about. But anyway, a parent called me and said, my child said that you're giving out tzitzit and it's going to make him proud to be Jewish, and it's a mitzvah. And I said to her, it's not, it is. And that parent took her child out of school. You know what? I was prepared to take that hit because of all the pride that the other children had, and those that did not feel comfortable wearing tzitzit at home left them in school. Do you understand what we try to work here in the school? Make it as comfortable as the child can be and non-judgmental, but at the same time offering them, in Rabbi, what's your name? Posner? In Rabbi Posner's words, authentic Judaism. And that's what worked. Rabbi Wohlberg and I, we were challenged. They almost closed the high school. Remember. They were going to close the high school. There wasn't enough money. And we went up to New York.
Who's they? Who's they?
They.
There is a board of directors, Rabbi Posner. You'll get to meet them. I haven't, but you'll get to meet them.
We went up to New York.
To the Jewish Theological Seminary.
Looking for something that would perhaps be a little bit more palatable for some of our leadership, thinking that if we hired someone from Jewish Theological Seminary, it would be more of a community school, because we were being criticized that it wasn't a community school, despite the fact that we had people in this school, every child from every single denomination of Judaism. What happened? Remember?
We went to New York.
We went to New York, and we tried to find the right kind of person who would be right for the school. And we interviewed a few people. One of them, we made mention of several Jewish books. Some of you know Mikro Gidolot. He never heard of it. And they never heard of some of the references that we had. And I turned to Rabbi Wohlberg, and to his credit, because this is one of the few arguments we had. He once said to me, you're bringing in all these frummies. What are you turning this into? I turned to him at that time and I said, you see, the frummies are better than this. So we have Torah committed Jews, and the only way you're going to teach kids that things matter deep inside your words, kishkas, is by having teachers who believe deeply and passionately in what they're doing inside their kishkas, and they're gonna teach it.
We expect that somebody who's teaching the kids about Shabbos should observe the Shabbos. And somebody who's teaching the laws of kashrut should observe the laws of kashrut, because otherwise the kids are gonna see right through it. But the fact of the matter is, no matter what we do, there's gonna be a large segment that it's not right for them. I see parents who sent their kids here through the 8th grade. They love the school, but it's now time. Frankie has to make the decision. Frankie makes the decision about what kind of Jew and human being he's going to be for the rest of his life, because that decision of what high school is going to go to is going to have a profound influence on him. But he might prefer the school with a better ball field.
Well, thank God.
Wait a minute.
Most of,
I know, we have gorgeous ball.
No, we don't have a turf field. That's my next project. But we do have 42 teams, an arts center, STEM centers.
Wait, but hold on.
We try to make this school as open to as many Jewish children as possible. The dress code.
Okay, this is what he does. He wants the kids to wear jeans.
I want them to wear whatever they want.
Yeah.
I don't want them to feel that because they're coming to a Jewish school, they're going to be labeled a Juvie or whatever it
Okay,
is.
so what does he do? He takes me to a mall and he sits me in the center of the mall, is an honest God truth. And he says, sit there and see what people are wearing when they walk up. Because in my neighborhood, I don't see a lot of jeans. So I sit there.
Yeah, what are they wearing at 7 Mile these days?
Yeah, right. They're-
Not masks. Oh. Yeah, you can quote me on that one.
So they're wearing jeans. So we come back and I say, not in this school. Forget it. I want a school that looks professional, that is proud of themselves, and they look good, and they're not wearing torn jeans. And
Second,
they
so-
don't.
so we have
All those in favor?
So we have sports teams, but like, I mean, are they good? Like, let's say like a girls soccer team,
Ha!
like, are they
Go
good?
ahead.
Don't tell our girls sports team soccer team went to a championship.
They did.
So
You understand?
let's remember.
You understand? I sit on the board of governors of the MIAA. Now you understand, I know nothing. So I see what McDonough votes for, and when his hand goes up, my hand goes up.
No, she calls me afterwards and tells me they voted for this and that. I said, to me, they weren't talking about football, they were talking about soccer. It's a completely different game. But let me tell you something. The problem isn't that that we don't have a day school for every Jewish child. The problem is the Jewish people today are so distant from their roots that they don't really see a reason to give that to their kids. I am not as optimistic as Rabbi Posner is about the future of the American Jewish community. And one of the reasons when I felt maybe I ought to step aside is maybe I'm getting a little too cynical. But when I read a statistic that 30% of the Jews in the United States don't go to a Pesach Seder, you think we're going to keep those kids as Jews? Or in many Reform temples now, the majority of members are non-Jews. What's going to happen? So we became the people of Tikkun Olam. The Jews might not make it, but the whales will.
No, my children are gonna make it. But they're only gonna make it if parents are committed, if they model for children the kind of commitment so that the kids know
They learn by watching you. And if parents and grandparents don't send the message that Judaism is important, that going to shul is important, that learning is important, you think that kids are going to pick up, you're not going to pick up on that kind of hypocrisy? So you're going to drop them off at the door and then go off to the country club. Unless parents, grandparents, people in the community are committed to to teaching, to education, to learning, to giving their resources.
But they're not.
So
They would rather their kid go to McDonald's.
And so our job is to get the ambassadors among you to make sure that you spread the word. I'm not talking to people in this room, obviously. Obviously, I'm talking about the greater good of the of our school and shul community. Go to shul. Show your kid that there's something to be said. Judaism. Keep Judaism in some form or another in your home. Rabbi is famous for saying, take something and do it. Take some, and then you're modeling for your kids something that is very, very precious. You don't model it? Why in God's name should they even come here unless they think that it's important to you or to your friends who should be sending their kids here? I did a survey of our kids, my seniors, I do a survey every year, and I asked them to circle the most important things to make you a serious Jew. It's remarkable. They did not pick davening. But I'm going to say over 90% said belief in God. You're talking about American teenagers. They could have said anything they wanted, and it was anonymous. They believed in belief. If you don't show them some level of commitment and some level of concert in with them, then what do we expect of our kids? So I do believe that we can make it happen. I do believe that by having younger parents coming to shul and their grandparents and their parents and grandparents coming, then they'll be here.
The community has to do more to make a day school education.
Money is going to matter.
Huh?
Money is going to matter.
There's no question about this, because it's not simply a choice of McDonough or Beth Tfiloh, it's a choice of public school of Beth Tfiloh. And that
Free is
is where dollars become a very big. I happened to met yesterday with Peter French. Why he wanted to meet with me, there's a rumor that I control votes.
I dropped that out there, just to keep you busy.
I can't get Sherry to vote for me. He could not believe that we have to raise $4 million to provide financial aid to students.
And that doesn't cover it. I like that. Let me tell you something else. Even if up the road we will have more money, unless we have the bottoms in the seats, the children in the seats now, even if we raise money, we're not going to be able to keep them. So now this is an incredibly important time for the Baltimore Jewish world and for the world. We need to have these kids here. We need them educated. We need you. When I say you, you know I'm talking about a universal you, to support them, to be ambassadors for us, and to show kids that it matters. If it doesn't matter to you, why should it matter to them?
Okay, let me cut it in because I want to tell Dr. Schorr something. Beth Tfiloh also has a congregation. And
I think that that's one of the ways that you can show children that it matters. When I say support, I mean, what can the parents do? They can't come
it's
to
a
school.
two-way street. I want you to know I am proposing to our executive committee tomorrow morning. And you know how often I post things to the executive committee.
Oh, there was that time with the mechitza.
The mechitza, yeah. That was about 18 years ago. There was something, another raise. That anybody who sends their kids to our school for the first 5 years should get free membership to our congregation. That we have to make this. All of the graduates from our high school are going to be offered a 4-year membership while they're in college. We have to make this we have to make this a package deal for the sake of the synagogue and the school and the Jewish people. Membership, you don't know what's going on out there because of COVID. People are watching services in New York, dressed in their gatkes, eating sandwiches, and you think they're gonna come back here to hear a schlepped out service?
If they're gonna be dressed that way and eating sandwiches, it is better that they are at home watching.
Oh, well, maybe I'm just assuming everybody dresses the way I do at home. But be that as it may,
Wait a minute, it's not a schlepped out service if everybody
there are
else is.
conservative and reform synagogues all across the country that are merging.
But I think there's gonna be a bounce back. That's what I wanna say.
Okay.
You know, when, at the beginning of this COVID, the conversations that we were having with our non-Orthodox rabbinic colleagues, the conversation was like this. Well, there's this new thing, Zoom, we're gonna get it started, it's gonna work for the high holidays. Oh boy, too bad you guys can't Zoom on Shabbos on a holiday. And we said we have to change the conversation. I don't like this conversation, too bad we can't. And we're gonna tell people what we can. What I wanna say is like now, we did everything we could to reach out to people when they couldn't come to shul. But we also retained the kernel of shul is in shul. Like it's in shul. And people talk about everything's virtual and everything. But people still want connection that you cannot get virtual. You have to get it.
And you're the strongest advocate for it, I'm completely supportive. There has to be changes within the shul itself. We can't keep doing things the way we've done it. In the same way, start off with this. A synagogue like ours will never be built. Who's gonna build a synagogue that has a seating arrangement for 1,600 people? Which hopefully you might have 3 days seating.
Hasidim.
Hasidim.
That was like,
Yeah. You know how big synagogues used to be sold to black churches? Ultimately, they'll be sold to ultra-Orthodox Jews because they're coming in big numbers.
it's a change in the thinking, right? It's a change in the thinking. That was a time like we've made it, we're proud, we can build as big as we want. And what we actually know today is like as big as we want is not necessarily.
When we renovated the congregation, the main sanctuary, just what was 10, 15 years ago?
I told them I wasn't coming without a renovation.
They told
They made the renovation happen.
them.
I told them.
We built
It was before.
this beautiful, expensive choir pit. You don't see it because it's done with carpeting, all sorts of things. We never used it.
But they
Because
also,
nobody today is coming to shuls for a big cantorial presentation.
with that, Rabbi, am I right that with those changes, they also pulled the bima out and brought it down? There was a recognition of this,
There's
like
gotta
being
be more
closer and more
connection.
intimate.
And today, people don't want to, 300, 400 people sitting in a sanctuary of 1,600 people. It does not feel Amish.
You know what it feels? It feels comfortable, and people like comfortable, but
No,
that's not what's gonna
I-
drive the next generation.
I think it feels very empty. It makes them feel like something's wrong. It makes them feel, how come all these people are not coming? It's empty and it feels like a party where only a handful of people come.
But people feel comfortable, meaning,
They can feel
I like my
comfortable.
seat, it's comfortable back here, I like that I have space, but that's not how
That's not
you
good enough.
give energy, that's not how you build, that's not how you get people excited.
When you say, and you were 100% right, that people have to come IRL in real life. For 18 months, we've done that in the school. We've come every single day.
Even I've come to a times.
Sometime. The fact is that Rabbi Posner, absolutely. I mean, this is a parallel kind of an experience where people leave entirely, that you gotta be here to be here. You can't be
Hey,
out there.
I'll give you a perfect example of this. We have a BT in the AM. In previous years, we had as many as 90 women would sign up. We're doing it now, you can come in person or Zoom in. So first of all, 90 didn't sign up. Maybe 15 come in person. And Shira, do you have numbers?
in person and about 40 on Zoom.
15 in person, 40 on Zoom. That's from 90 in person before COVID.
And it's not the same experience, you can't tell.
And it's not the same experience.
That's why we want,
And you're not
That's why I wanted
developing the
people to be
same
here.
connection.
that's why we wanted people to be here for this conversation, because it's different when you're speaking to a room where there were like people there.
Yeah, there have to be changes.
We also said that we were gonna ask them to ask questions because we were interested in what they were saying. I am interested in what they're saying. He's totally not.
For those who are on Zoom, there's about 400 people here in person.
Yes.
And by the way, the numbers from Zoom, it's close to 1,000 actually watching on Zoom, so that's unbelievable. But this is a difference. You can feel a different energy in this room
Different.
than the last couple of weeks when we had
If you
more.
want to know a difference, I'll give you the difference. When I came here, I almost didn't get the position because I refused to wear a robe, a black robe. That still in many conservative and reform synagogues, that's still part of the Protestant ethic that had been developed as being part of the American. I didn't want to wear, first of all, nobody would see my toes. So that like, immediately. I'll tell you something else, a little change. Kids came up to the beam of the candy. That didn't happen at that available before this. With good reason. The formality was what was needed in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. The more intimate and personal started to move in the 90s, and this generation most certainly wants that and doesn't want its children kept out.
They don't want their children kept out, and this congregation has really shown that you want children. If you didn't want children, you want kids.
It's the adults that are the problem.
The most difficult for me, Dr. Schorr, I think, had more difficult decisions to make in the school. The most difficult decision that we had to make over COVID was this past high holidays, when we did not let kids into the services. It was very difficult, it was very heavy. We made places where they were able to participate. We had a service start up outside, and actually that service has grown and grown, has become a weekly service, which is beautiful. But that was a very, very tough decision. But in general, right?
If I want to tell you something, you can have kids being comfortable in school and still have decorum. I mean, in school, I believe in professionalism. That doesn't mean I don't love the children. It doesn't mean they're not joyous. But if I see them running around, oh, God help them.
Well, you know what, actually,
As
some
my
schools,
son Jonathan said, as a student, he learned very quickly that if you're walking in the hall and Dr. Schorr is coming towards you, don't make eye contact.
you know, in some schools, when they want quiet, they clap on the bima. We have a pair of heels and we just kind of drop them. It's fine. Maybe we'll let the people.
Anybody have some questions out there? Yes, Dr. Klein.
We didn't finish this, but I want to give a heck of a lot of credit to the fact on the secular side of the school, the fact that it is so excellent here with the Jewish education, absolutely critical, separated it from any other Jewish education
Thanks
here.
for saying that.
So that's how you compete against others. When my children were here, there was a year that was 3 perfect SATs. There were all these Ivy Leagues.
They sat next to each other.
There's a double credit that goes to the leadership for insisting on excellence on both sides.
So
You have no idea how hard I work.
Yeah, right. I do thank you. I'm not sure if everybody heard, but Dr. Kleiner was specifically talking about the fact that our education, our secular education is superior. And in fact, we're just getting this week the acceptances from all around the country in terms of the college acceptances of our kids. You may or may not know the fact that we call every single college that every child applies to and advocate on their behalf.
Dr. Plummer, let me tell you something. Not only does Dr. Schorr pursue these quality teachers, but I can tell you, I don't know of a single teacher who came here from another school who said they regretted the change.
If anything, I got the following note from one of our top teachers. Just 3 words it says. Best job ever. So yes, and I do appreciate you saying that. And it's interesting you say that because I'm going to just read to you something that was written. It's important to have an inclusive education of high quality general studies and Jewish studies in an atmosphere of Torah. It's important that there be a synthesis of Torah learning and high quality general education so you can make a distinct contribution to society. And it is important to have a full knowledge of tradition with the complete awareness of the physical and social environment in which we live. That's Beth Tfiloh. Can I tell you who wrote this? Me, when I was 16 years old. And when I was speaking on behalf of the school that I went to when they built their building. And nothing has changed.
Any other questions? Yes.
We accept the fact that the medical sit outside, even the number of
Is it inevitable that we're going to lose the 3-day-a-year people? Honestly, I've never operated on the basis of inevitable because nobody knows what the future may bring. A case could be made that people in the non-Orthodox community who are looking for something a bit more authentic will be attracted to a Beth Tfiloh, or they will sense something works here. I don't know what goes on in other schools, honestly, because I don't go to other schools. But I know that a member of our synagogue, 93 years old, comes to shul every Shabbos. He's in North Oaks. For one reason or another, North Oaks and the family says he'd be much better off being at Edenwald. He refuses to change because he doesn't want to be any further away from Beth Tfiloh than he has been, because Beth Tfiloh is my hope. We're doing something to make him feel that way. In a synagogue this large, there's a sense of intimacy that I think is unique, and there are people out there who are looking for it.
And don't you think that Rabbi Posner's plan of trying to make it even more intimate will make a difference for those people who feel connected?
When I came to Beth Tfiloh, my attraction, he's gonna be an attraction to the kids.
Who, you?
Me, yeah, it's hard to
You know.
it's hard to believe.
Tell them why, how I allow you in the school.
Things have changed. Now I can only go into the school if I have a shadow. It doesn't allow me in the school by myself because what I might say to the children. Yeah, because I want the kids to enjoy life. I hate that they have to go to school.
I understand why you can't come into the school.
Well, I'm definitely not prepared to accept that. If I was, then I just shouldn't take this job. Meaning, like, I'm not prepared to accept that. Are there trends out there? There are trends out there. Is Beth Tfiloh unique? Beth Tfiloh is very unique. There are not many places like Beth Tfiloh. There really aren't. We used to joke. I have a group of guys. We have a book club for many years now. We would always joke. Now I'm the butt of the joke. I think is we would always joke. You know, you hear people talk like a Beth Tfiloh lifer. They talk about Beth Tfiloh like there's no other place that exists in the world. Like this is the only place.
I want to say something. It is very, do you not know that it's very unique?
That's what
Rabbi
I'm saying.
Wohlberg.
And like,
Yeah, basically.
meaning,
And there are a lot of young families that have moved into our neighborhood who can very much form the basis
Yeah.
where we don't have to be totally dependent upon the 3-day-a-year people, although we certainly want them here at Beth Tfiloh, because we really do feel that what we do for 3 days a year is very meaningful to their Jewish lives for the rest of the year as well.
I just don't think that the point I want to make is the fact that there are trends out there does not necessarily mean that Beth Tfiloh is going to be part of that trend. There are good reasons to say, and I think it's going to be a bounce back. I think it's going to be a bounce back from COVID. I think it's going to take people some time, by the way. I don't think they're immediately going to rush back.
Let me tell you, one of the things that always stuck in my mind. The Associated did a communal survey. Jack Euclides, I think, you remember him? And, and he told me afterwards that it was a remarkable thing. In every other community where he goes, it's Orthodox, conservative, reform, he says, this was the only community where there was Orthodox, conservative, reform, and Beth Tfiloh.
And it showed
It's
in the
like its
survey.
own special.
Yeah, remember when the Associated did their survey, there was a separate category for Beth Tfiloh.
Yeah.
And that is challenging, because when you're so unique, we walk a very fine line, as Rabbi Wohlberg alluded to earlier. So it's a challenge when the world changes around us, how we retain that. But one thing we know is that if you ask most people, many people, what they like about Beth Tfiloh, what they love about Beth Tfiloh, and name some of the things that are special, they'll point to this. They'll say the wide range of people. We're accepting of all. We're non-judgmental. We have so many different people there. If we stop being that, then we'll be off mission. We have to make sure that we continue to be that. But there was a time when, in order to continue being that, they had to put a mechitza.
Yeah, but I'm gonna take it a step further. I've been, not anymore, of course. I've been offered jobs in, let us say, very, very Orthodox schools. I'm not
Hebrew
interested.
schools, not.
Yeah, they don't in schools anymore. I'm not interested in that. I believe in the fact that there is this school and shul that is this big umbrella, because that's what Judaism is supposed to be. Klal Yisrael is supposed to be room for this part and this, and on this stage, we represent different kinds of Judaism. He goes to shul, he doesn't.
Wait, hold on. Two of the people on this stage go to shul every Shabbos. Does anyone want to? No, forget.
I happen to go to shul every Shabbos, and I doubt. Just saying.
You don't know the pains of growing old.
That's the two. That's the two. That was my point. No, he does go on Shabbos. Currently.
My concern is not about Beth Tfiloh. My concern is about the non-Orthodox community. I mean that with the whole heart. From the day I entered the rabbinate, I knew I wasn't the typical Orthodox rabbi. And I didn't want to be the rabbi in the typical Orthodox shul, because the typical Orthodox shul would not want me as their rabbi. So the most meaningful things I did early on in the rabbinate was being on the staff of the International Leadership Training Conference of the B'nai B'rith Youth Organization, where they had 16-year-old kids come from all across the country for intensive training in leadership and in Judaism. And I was the Orthodox rabbi. And I saw what an effect I could have, because they never imagined the Orthodox rabbi in jeans and who knew all about Peter Frampton and everything else. Ask them at Ames, they'll explain that. And I saw the effect that I could have. Great story. Sherry and I are in New York, and we see an advertisement for a group tour, Hasidic tour of Crown Heights. We grew up in Brooklyn, but we were not that familiar with Crown Heights. And Crown Heights, as you know, is primarily the Lubavitch Chabad community. So we said, let's take the tour. So we go, and everybody, they meet like in a library. It's a front for Lubavitch. They control the tour. And the tour director comes in, beard and payas, a real Chabad person, and he goes around the room. Everybody has to introduce themselves and where they're from and what they do. And as he's getting close to me, I'm dressed in a sweatshirt and jeans. And I say to Sherry, By the time they came to me, I said, I'm a rabbi from Baltimore. This Chabad rabbi said, are you Mitch Wohlberg? He said, you were my teacher at the International Leadership Training Conference. You made me what I am today. And I turned to Schorr and said, I ruined the guy's life. But I saw that could be done. I don't see it being done today.
Except by my teachers.
Huh?
Yeah, except by my teachers.
Yeah, okay. Yes. Here we're doing just that.
You know what people, you hear a lot today, a lot of people today talk about Chabad and say, look at how successful Chabad has been. They don't hide from who they are, they put it right out there. When people want to say, you're gonna be too religious, too frum, you know, what are you gonna, they wear hats, they wear suits, they go out there, they show who we are, they get in your face, they say, put on tefillin, right? And we're like afraid of that, we're like scared of
I'm
it,
not
right?
suggesting that our kids start looking.
I'm not,
at Chabad.
I'm
That's the
not
last thing
suggesting
I
our
want.
people start looking
I can
at
throw
Chabad.
I can throw it down right now.
We tell our people they don't have to do that. All they have to do is clean the spring.
And that's not. Listen, I want our kids to be involved in community service, and our kids are required to have community service. I want them to care about the world around them. I don't want them to be little tiny 4-square Jews. I don't. I want them to have a wide range of experience. But at the same time, what is important about what we do? And what we do is make Jews. That's what we do. That's what we do. Although they don't generally look like Rabbi Wohlberg. Rabbi Wohlberg, I am going to tell you, I did have an experience in Borough Park where it was Erev Rosh Hashanah and he went to buy challah. And everybody in line, the lady behind the counter said, John Tiv, Agajor, Agajor, Agajor. He came to Rabbi Wohlberg, he says, Happy New Year.
So we have in common, also growing up in Brooklyn. Also, you know, when I would go daven, let's say I was off from school, so I went to daven a late minyan, you know, so I go into a shul. I'm the only one, obviously, like wearing jeans and a t-shirt, and I'm davening. They get up to laning, and they say, is there a Baal Korah here? Does anyone know the reading? So I wait for any one of the very religious-looking people, and I wait. This happened numerous times. And finally, I step forward. Yeah, I know the laning. So, you know, I come up, I lean. I did a good job. The guy said to me afterwards, was that your bar mitzvah parsha?
Thank you all for coming this evening. Really. As you can tell yourselves, our future is very bright. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.